Good afternoon, distinguished colleagues. Let me start this conversation, as I would like to call it, by first thanking the leadership of our esteemed institute in Ogun State for inviting me for this discussion. I'd like to start by recognizing the head of service of Ogun State, Mr. Kolawole Peter Fagbo, Mr. Jola Oyineye, MNI, MCIPM, Permanent Secretary, Bureau of Public Service Transformation, Mrs. Olua Toyin Jacobs, MCIPM, our brand new Permanent Secretary for Ogun State Civil Service Commission and Coordinator of the Admin Officers Forum for the Ogun State Civil Service, Alhaji Adetuntan Abubakar, ACIPM, our immediate past chairman for CIPM Ogun State. And let me also quickly recognize the RCCG team, ably led by Professor Ladile Balogun, MCIPM, the head of our administration, Pastor Julius Olalekan, MCIPM, head of personnel, Pastor Rotimi Adegbodioyo, my fellow brother in the Fellows Committee, and patron of the CIPM RCCG chapter, Pastor Seun Adebayo, FCIPM, President of the RCCG Administrators, branch executives of the Ogun State branch, chapter chairmen who are on this call, distinguished members of our institute. I've been asked to speak on the ethical odyssey and navigating today's workplace horizon. I like to keep my discussions very simple and straightforward. So I have simply titled my presentation as Ethics in the Workplace, because that basically is what we will be talking about. I like to begin by saying that in the workplace, there are several common ethical principles that should be observed. These principles serve as a guide to maintain a positive and ethical workplace culture, while also upholding the values and reputation of the organization. It is important to note that every organization, whether in the public service or in the private sector, may have its own specific code of conduct and ethical guidelines. Our discussion today, I have tried to put out an outline, which, as you can see on the screen, indicates that we will be introducing ourselves to work ethics, which we all do know about. My role actually is simply to remind us of those things that we all know about and principles that we have all imbibed and we all try at least to practice in our respective workplaces. We'll be looking at work ethics performance standards, and then principles that can change us as individuals in our respective workplaces. And then we will conclude our discussion. Work ethics. What exactly are work ethics or ethics generally? Ethics, by my understanding, and I believe the understanding of very many of us, is a summation of both values and behaviors. And it is often said that positive work ethics equals positive values and actions in the workplace. So, if you join an organization, what you begin to look for are those values, those behaviors that you believe will shape you as an employee in the organization and will help you to develop your career in the organization. So the first thing that we begin to look for as employees is those positive vibes, those positive ethics, those positive cultures that we find in the organization. And day in, day out, as we go along, we begin to imbibe these work ethics such that they become a part of us and also help in our career growth and our career development. What are these work ethic performance standards? There are quite a number of them, but I have tried to identify the very common ones, which, like I said, we all know and we all are able to relate with. What are these common work ethics? The first of these work ethics, of course, is what I've called attendance. If you're an employee in an organization, every employer expects you to arrive to your job post on time. If for any reason you will not be at your duty post on time, be courteous enough to notify your line manager, your supervisor, or your colleagues ahead of your lateness to work. Personally, and for my colleagues who are on the call who work in Dangote, a common culture amongst us, even at our levels as very senior management staff, is to drop a message, for example, on our WhatsApp group, or to individual colleagues in the office to say, oh, I'm in traffic, I'm running a bit late, I'll probably get to the office, around 8:30. That way, when your supervisor or your superior officer comes looking for you, your colleagues are able to say, oh, look, he's held up in traffic. Oh, no, he stopped at the bank. He has indicated that he'll be a few minutes late. You can send this message, to your line manager or to your colleagues who can then pass this message on to your line manager. Avoid perpetual lateness, because what it does, is to give an indication of unseriousness. Everyone will then begin to look at this employee as one is always late to every function. If he's late to work, it means he will also be late to any other function. The attitude of attending either the workplace or attending functions and arriving at functions on time helps with career advancement. I grew up as a young man in northern Nigeria, hearing that one of the late premier of northern Nigeria was said to have, on account of the constant lateness of one of the traditional chiefs then in the north to every function, decided in council that that traditional ruler, for example, was not fit for office. And what did they do? He was then deposed and another traditional ruler was. So long before now, people have always spoken about the need for us to attend our workplaces and to attend our functions on time. The next I want to speak about is character. And as you can see on the screen, the catchphrases are wrong is wrong, even if everyone is doing it. Right is right, even if no one is doing it. As individuals, as employees, as leaders in our respective rights, and as HR professionals, we must continue to make the effort and commitment to performing and completing our tasks and our work. And in performing our tasks and in striving, of course, to perform and complete our tasks, we must always bring to bear honesty and integrity in all situations. It doesn't matter, if everyone is doing the wrong thing. As long as you are convinced that it is wrong, then do not do it. Do the right thing. And it also does not matter if you are the only one standing in the room or in the workplace who is doing the right thing. If it does not pay off immediately, it definitely will pay off, in the near future. Be trustworthy and continue and continuously exhibit responsible behavior. You must not be seen to be the one who is disruptive at work. You must also not be seen to be the one who brings toxicity to the workplace. Above all, a loyal, dependable, reliable, and self-disciplined employee is one who is more likely at least to breast the tip in his or her career. You may be tech savvy. You may be very eloquent, in speaking. You may also know so many things and bring so many things to the table. If your employer were to find out that you are a disloyal employee, or you are an employee that cannot be depended upon, or is not reliable, or does not have self-discipline, the likelihood is that you will not make the required kind of progress wherever it is that you are working. It is common to think, for example, in the public service. I know that the public service, it is the government. But even in the public service and in all services, as a matter of fact, whether in the military, paramilitary, or in the private sector, the key word is loyalty. The key word is dependability. And the key word is reliability. And you can only have all of this if you have self-discipline and you take initiative when you necessarily have to in your workplace. Next, of course, is teamwork. Teamwork makes the dream work. No matter how well a department or a group of people fashion out a task on which they have to deliver, there's a likelihood that they may not achieve the intended objective if they do not work together as a team. And the common saying is that a chain, is only as strong as its weakest link. The ability to work together in a team, to cooperate with others, to trust and believe in others, and to identify with your group is what helps a team to tick. So as a member of a team, whether in a unit, in the HR department, or in a unit, for example, in the admin department of a government parastatal or ministry, your commitment to the work of the team, and your demonstration of the team spirit is what will help the team to deliver, on the dream work or the dream assignment that they have. In doing this, you must respect the right of others. You must respect the confidentiality that you are expected to bring onto the table. In respecting the right of others, like I always tell people, my right, for example, does not extend beyond my nose. And I always tell people that as a lawyer, I am told that where my right terminates, that is where the right of others also begin. So you must learn to respect the right of others in the workplace. These include the right to freely express themselves, the right to freely, associate, the right to bring their opinions to the table, during discussions or during assignments, which you have to do together as a team. And at all times, you must respect confidentiality in the work you do and the manner in which, of course, you share information. either in the workplace or outside of the workplace. Any work-related information. Number 4, of course, is appearance. This may look quite, how do I put, very, very simple. But you know, the common saying is that as you dress, so is the way you will be addressed. Always present a very neat and clean appearance wherever you go. If you work, for example, in the office, and you work in the office of a permanent secretary in the civil service of Ogun State, I will be surprised that any serious-minded employee will go to the office of the permanent secretary wearing a sagged jeans, you know, like our young brothers are want to do. I will be surprised if, for example, a female employee, you know, in the office of the managing director, you know, of a company or anywhere at all, will wear what our sisters call spaghetti to work. There is an appropriate dress for every time. You must also practice personal hygiene. Wear clothing suitable to the job and task that you need to perform and the environment. For those of us who work in the manufacturing concerns, I mean, if you are going into the plant, everyone will expect you to wear a helmet like the young man here is wearing. Wear a safety boot like the young man here in the picture here is wearing. The same thing applies to those who work in blue-collar jobs in the offices. People expect that when you go to work, you're probably, wearing what we call business casual. And in communicating, you must use appropriate verbal and written etiquette. Appropriate verbal language and written language. I'm always quick to tell people that the word "dear Ahmed" or "please," you know, when people say it to me, already tells me or convinces me that whatever this gentleman or lady is going to say, if it is within my ability to deliver on it, I will deliver. Because the opening statement, "dear Ahmed" or "please Ahmed," already endears me to the individual and to whatever it is that the individual is asking. The 5th is attitude. Attitude, they said, is a magnet. What you think is what you attract. So it is always important that we think positively and that we bring the right kind of attitude to the table. Never underestimate the power of proper attitude. Because in all that you do, if you do not have the right kind of attitude, the likelihood is that those with whom you work, those who superintend over what you do, and even your peers, you know, will not likely take you serious. Attitude, they say, determines how successful we will be in our career and in our life. Attitude determines altitude. And I tell people that if you aim in the journey of life, you should always aim at the sky. Because if you aim at the sky with the right kind of attitude, you are likely to get to the top of a tree. But if you aim at the top of a tree and you do not have the right kind of attitude, you will most likely not even leave the ground. So the right attitude, while aiming at the sky, will definitely get you at least to the top of a tree, if it doesn't get you to the sky. So always have the right kind of attitude. The 6th, of course, is to say, have realistic expectations of yourself. If today you are still a kitten, do not begin to roar like a lion. Imagine what your career path will be, where you are, and where you intend to get to. The mane that we see on the head of a lion was not grown in a day. Every lion itself started as a cub. So in our journey of life and in our careers, we must first begin by taking the baby steps that will lead us to becoming the king of the jungle. So have realistic expectations of yourself. The sixth for me is productivity. You must learn to follow directions, processes, and procedures. I am aware, that quite a number of our Gen Zs, our millennials today think that procedures and processes, some can be so cumbersome that they hinder, the ability to quickly deliver on tasks. But at the end of the day, you will find that directions that are in place, processes and procedures, no matter how cumbersome they may be, help to deliver on whatever task that you have. It helps you to structure whatever task you have and whatever assignments you have to deliver on. As an employee, you must learn to contribute to work discussion. You must learn to complete assignments and tasks on time. You must begin and end work as expected. Use your work time appropriately. Stay on task and utilize time constructively. When we say use your work time appropriately, do not go to work and use the time for which you are supposed to be serving your employer to go about gossiping in the workplace, or as we commonly see in some places, you start using the work time to begin to sell various kind of chores in the workplace. You expect your employer to pay you for work done. It is only fair that you also try to use the time of the employer to deliver on work assigned to you. Stay on your task. Understand what you need to do. If you do not understand what you need to do, ask your colleagues, ask your line manager. There is always nothing to be ashamed about in acquiring knowledge, either through peers, through superiors, or even through those who report to you. Number 7 for me is organizational skills. And in speaking about organizational skills, we must learn to prioritize and manage time and stress effectively. It is unlikely that there is any job today in this country that does not bring some form of stress or the other to the table. So as employees, we must learn to prioritize what task we need to deliver on. We must learn to manage our time in delivering on this task while also managing stress. And in managing stress, we all have different ways of dealing with stress. For some of us, once you get 5 to 6 hours sleep, no matter how overstressed you are, you wake up the following morning feeling very rejuvenated. For some, it will take leaving the office to go play a game of lawn tennis or a game of squash For some, it may take, in fact, sitting down with their friends and peers to talk, to unwind. In all that we do, we must make sure that we manage our time well. And of course, we ensure that we are stress-free. This is important even for our mental well-being and for our mental health. We must demonstrate flexibility in adapting to changes. Ask for help if required, like I said before. And the example that I'm always quick to make is when Sean was introducing me, he did mention that I had been managing director with Greater Hope. I remember when I first joined my current employer as Dangote Cement in 2018. Here was I, coming from my role as MD. I had a technical assistant, I had an executive assistant. And on my first day at work in Dangote Cement, I was moved. In fact, I was led by the then group chief HR officer to my office. Of course, the first thing was I realized I was going to be sharing office with somebody. That was a shock at first. And then as time went on, I also realized that I needed to hone my IT skills. When I joined the business, my Excel skills were at very basic level. It didn't take me 2 weeks to realize, for example, that I needed to move that Excel skill from being basic to at least intermediate. And what did I do? I asked for helps from my very young colleagues, a lot of whom were Gen Zs and millennials, asking them to teach me this, teach me that, how do I do this, and how do I do that? Today, I think I'm a better person, both personally and professionally, what I do. What I did at the time was to adapt to the changes that I found in the workplace, in the new work environment that I do. If I wasn't flexible, I probably would have left on my own before now, or I would have been kicked out because I've been unable to acquire the skills that I require for the jobs that I've had to do or that I'm doing now. Communication, and this is very key. Communication works for those who work at it. In your communication, you must learn to be professional and courteous. When I started off a short while ago, as I was speaking, I said, when somebody comes to me or writes or sends me a mail and say, "Dear Ahmed, do this," that already is someone extending courtesy to me. When you write a mail and you say, "Dear Ahmed, kindly but urgently do XYZ," you are simply saying, I need this response from you very urgently, as quickly as possible, but you are being very professional and very courteous in the way in which you are communicating. If you come to me and you just say, "Ahmed, deliver this in the next 40, 55 minutes," the first thoughts that will come to my mind is, oh, even though he or she is my boss, she is rude, or he is rude, or he is discourteous. So when you communicate with your peers, with your direct reports, with your line managers, be very professional in your communication and be courteous in doing so. Do not be abusive when you speak to people or when you share any form of communication. Display appropriate nonverbal and oral skills. You must also be a good listener. You must listen to people when they speak to you so you can get a full gist of the idea they are bringing forth. And even if you disagree, with the idea that they are bringing forth. You must be very courteous in your response, to them. And you do not simply say, I disagree, or no, it is not like that. You bring forth your argument in such a superior way that whoever is listening to you, or whoever has also brought up some views before yours, will understand that the arguments that you are bringing forth, of course, are more superior than what they had brought forth. Good technology etiquette. I think I've spoken to that. As HR professionals, this is something that we need to cultivate. At the time, some of us started HR practice, or personnel management as it was then called. The fanciful thing to do then was to be able to develop a memo, and we were taught how to structure our memos. I know that our colleagues in the public service still do that. If you have a cabinet memo to deliver, there's a particular way it is structured. But in the HR world of today, HR analytics, data analytics rules the world. So you must be technologically savvy to be able to put together your data and to be able to present them, analyze and present them. You must convey. The next, of course, is cooperation. And in cooperating with people, you must convey the willingness to assist others, a willingness to continue to play as a member of a team, and of course, the willingness to offer assistance to your colleagues in the team when they ask for one. You must treat people fairly and equitably. And like we said in law, he who comes to equity must come with clean hands. If you expect others to treat you equitably and fairly, then you must learn to also treat people fairly and equitably. You must learn to handle criticism, conflicts, and complaints appropriately. No matter how good your ideas are, there will always be someone who has a different idea or a different opinion. When they come with such criticism, do not shut them down. Listen to them, and understand, the point and the place from which they are coming. You must learn to handle workplace conflict, because make no mistake about it, we as professionals will always experience and encounter conflicts in the workplace. And we must learn, of course, to handle complaints appropriately. As HR professionals, we must have a problem-solving capability. Do not be that HR professional who has want to always rush to his line manager to say, oh, there's problem with XYZ, but you are not able to provide a solution. If you say there's problem with ABC, then you must be able to also say that XYZ is my idea of how we can solve this problem. Like one of my superiors used to say, when some of us will walk into his office to say, oh, we think there's this problem or there's this whatever, he will simply say, look, carry your monkey and go away with it. I have enough monkeys to deal with on my plate. So you must learn to develop and cultivate a problem-solving ability and capability. You must also maintain appropriate relationships with your supervisors and with your peers at work. I think we've spoken a lot about this. The last, of course, is respect. Respect should be the first thing that you give. to others so that you can get the same back. Of course, the saying is respect begets respect. Treat others with courtesy and tact. Do not engage in any form of harassment or bullying in the workplace. And harassment and bullying can come in different forms. You can have verbal harassment. You can have verbal bullying. You can have cyber bullying as well as cyber harassment. And you have all forms of harassment, even in the workplace. We must learn to deal appropriately with workplace cultural and racial diversity. Diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging is the watchword and the catchphrase everywhere you turn to today. And this is even more so for us as HR professionals. We must learn to recognize the cultural diversities that exist in our respective workplaces. And it is our responsibility as HR professionals to manage these diversities, this cultural and racial diversity, whether in terms of ethnicity, in terms of religion, in terms of gender. There are a few principles I also like to share with us. These are principles that one of my mentors and my leaders shared with myself and some of our colleagues sometimes back. There are principles that I have found that they can change you and help you develop yourself, develop your work culture, and also help you grow in your career. The first of these, of course, is that you should get, no matter how far gone you think you are in your career, it is always nice to have a mentor. But if you even think that you do not need a mentor, or you have grown to that level where you do not require a mentor, then at least get a mentee. Mentor somebody. Impart that knowledge that you have, that culture that you have developed over time into some other person. Be that person, that go-to person. There are a few people can run to say, look, I want some idea about this career move, or I want some idea from you, in fact, about this aspect of my life. It does not necessarily have to be workplace mentoring. Even out of the workplace, you can mentor somebody. So get a mentor for yourself, or at least mentor somebody. Easy, it is said, is a greater threat to success than hardship. No one who has succeeded through the hard way easily forgets. But if you had success just thrown on your lap, the likelihood is that you will forget easily, and that will become a threat to the success that you have achieved. The third is quitting and perseverance, all hot, but you must choose which one you prefer. If you are faced with a challenge in life, whether in the workplace or in your personal life, you can either decide to quit or you persevere. If you quit, it is a decision that will hurt. If, for example, you do have a challenge with a boss in the workplace, and your idea is to say, look, let me quit the work. What I always say is that how sure are you that the boss that you are going to encounter in the place you are running to will not even be worse than the one you are running away from? But if you persevere, there's also a likelihood that with the correct professional attitude, you will most likely let that boss of yours understand that his conduct or her conduct and attitude are not correct, and they are one that is hurting the workplace and hurting people who are working with him or her. So whether you decide to quit or you decide to persevere, whichever decision you take, of course, will definitely hurt you. You need to decide on which one you prefer. The next is that success and comfort, of course, do not share the same phrase. You cannot expect that you want to achieve success and not suffer some measure of discomfort. Like my boss will say, you cannot say you want to deliver a baby without getting pregnant. Or you cannot say you want to deliver a baby without going through the throes of labor or the pains of labor. What will be your legacy when you leave the workplace or when you eventually even leave the world? You must be that person who today is thinking about what will people think of me when I leave the workplace. I don't know how many of us have seen some videos about some police commissioner or assistant commissioner who sometimes ago was transferred from a particular workplace. And all the police officers in that division were dancing and jubilating. Some were even firing their guns. And when the police officer sat back in his office, they practically went to escort him out of the place. You must not be that kind of a person who, when you are leaving, those who have worked with you will be jubilating at your exit. Leave the right kind of legacy, one that people will speak about and one that people will be willing to emulate. You must learn, unlearn, relearn, and even outline yourself. Stay relevant at all times. And in staying relevant, it means you have to continue to acquire the right set of skills, which will make you not indispensable, but at least relevant to the organization where you work. You must be that person, that either your colleagues or your superiors are willing to call on, at all times to say, can we borrow this idea from you? Can we share this idea from you? Or can you make some input into this or some contribution into this project that we're working on? Strive to be excellent at all times. Be good at what you do. And let people know that in your workplace, you are one who wants to deliver an excellent result. That at all times, what you do will always exceed the expectation of those for whom you work. And finally, to do all of this, the menu, of course, is in the values that we create for ourselves over time. From the onset, you must, of course, have developed and cultivated those values that you think will help you win the race and breast the tape. They will, of course, include the values of perseverance, being able to manage success, leaving enduring legacies, and staying relevant at all times. In conclusion, I like to say that we all should remember that at all times, we must not do anything that even as individuals, we think will not be okay, if everybody knew about it, or if some people were to get to know about it. That is the essence of developing and growing a workplace ethics, a workplace culture, which endears every employee and every individual. To those with whom to work, they work, and to those with whom they cross paths in the course of their professional or personal life and in the course of their career. Thank you very much for letting me speak with you. Thank you.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, colleagues.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
And thank you very much, Ahmed Gobir, for that wonderful lecture this afternoon. We have to appreciate your wealth of experience which you have given to us today. I have a question. All right, so you're prescribed, I think, 10 points that you prescribed here for ethical workplace behavior and all of that. And my question is, what if somebody's observed all of those principles as you prescribed and still has difficulty navigating through, the ethical dilemmas that they may encounter at workplace? What will be that person's first strategy, either to get above all of this or to make a turnaround? What would be your suggestion or advice?
Thank you very much, Alicia. That's a very, how do I say, very, very, very wide question, so to say. But I would like to just tie this to our code of conduct in the CIPM. One of the things that our code of conduct says is that when you do get to that bridge where you find that some things that are being asked of you are such that will conflict with the oath you have taken as a member of the institute, it is best that you walk away from that situation. Now, however, remember that I've also said both quitting and perseverance are choices, but you have to decide which one you want to choose. Now, if you choose to quit, it will mean that you are running away, of course, from that problem. It doesn't mean that it has been solved. And that's why I said, okay, if you leave that work environment, what guarantee do you have that where you are going to will not even be a worse, situation? If, however, you choose to persevere, then it means you are ready to walk around, you are ready to walk around those ethical challenges that you have. That does not mean that you will compromise, on your principles. And what I have simply discussed here are just 10 of the so many, ethical principles that we have. One other one, of course, is learning to manage your boss. It's also a very good way of navigating, the ethical dilemma that we sometimes run to in the course of our work. I don't know if I've answered your question.
Yes, you are. Yes, you have. Thank you very much.
Thank
you. Okay. We need to release Ahmed Gobir right now. Please, I know members of the
sorry,
executive...
Sean.
Yes, sir.
My sincere apologies, sorry. There's a question on the chat platform from Fabode Olatunbosun, who is asking about working with a difficult boss. And if he or she does not want to hear anything from he or she does not want to hear anything from his subordinate. He only thinks that he is always right and he knows it all. Fabode, sorry. I have just said that you have to learn to manage your boss. I am one person, and I think my colleagues on the call here, will know about what I'm about to speak about, that I've been told by a boss that, look, the boss is always right. In some instances, I have walked away, and I walked away, with the feeling that, well, this boss will soon find out that he's not always right. But I am also one person who have stood up to my boss in some instances that I felt very, very strongly about the matter we were discussing. And I stood my ground. And I did tell my boss that I will take whatever sanction you are ready to met out to me if at the end of the day you find that I am wrong. Where I work, some of my colleagues joke about, the fact that that issue started from the, they joke about it and say, that issue started from the High Court. We took it to the Court of Appeal. Literally, I do not mean going to court, but that the instance at which we were first discussing the matter was at the High Court level. That was between me and my boss. When I stood my ground, my boss decided to consult somebody from outside, to get to hear, the person's view. One very senior HR professional, a member of our institute too. And the HR professional came back with a response that, not knowing what I had said, came back with the same solution and the same response I gave to the issue that was at hand. Not satisfied, my boss went ahead to call the then Director General of NECA, the late Timothy Olawale, to present the same issue. And that was when my colleagues said going to NECA was like going to the Supreme Court over this matter. And the response, from the DG of NECA over the issue, not only agreed with the response that the senior HR professional had provided, it was on all fours, as we say in law, completely in agreement with the solution that I had provided, for the matter at the time. So you learn to manage your boss. But where you feel so strongly and you are sure that you are right, you should also stand your ground. That would be my response, Fabode. Thank you, Sean.
Okay. Mr. Olushola Joseph, I think he left the call. He was the one raising his hand. I gave him permission now, but unfortunately, he left the call. But that won't be a problem. There will be more meetings for him to make contributions. Our time is far gone, and we want to especially once again recognize you, Mr. Ahmed Gobir. Thank you for coming to honor us today. We deeply, deeply, deeply appreciate it. We hope that when next we call on you, sir, we will always get this kind of positive response from you.
Thank you very much, Sean. Thank you for inviting me, and thank you, CIPM Ogun State branch. Please convey my very deep gratitude to all our leaders in the Ogun State branch. Thank you, Sean. And thank you, colleagues, for joining the call. God bless you all.